aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Rebel Alliance podcast. My name is Aaron, and this is episode 55. We are being sold out. And we're going to do a little Q&A today. Also with this, I'm really trying to muster up every last bit of energy I have because I guess we'll go into a little story time right after we take care of the housekeeping, which nobody ever shows up for anyway. So we'll just get through that and then we'll turn on the comments. So as always, if you're looking to support this podcast, the video, if you're watching it, feel free to share that with friends, family, anybody that you think would be interested in what we talk about here. Also, if you are looking for your own DIY templates, you can go over to the PMA Manifesto, which we have our call coming up, I think, in 2 weeks. And then also East Coast PMA. There are templates on there for you to get your associations. There's also some other cool stuff over at East Coast PMA, along with some more information and past episodes, should you want to go over there and read that. And then there's also some things in the right-hand side column that you can utilize that will also help support this podcast, whether it's getting Dr. Graves' course at Jurisdictionary to learn how the court systems work and how to, protect yourself when wrongdoers do you wrong, I guess is the best way to put it. That's a great course over there, along with some other things. You want to get set up with a Liberty Dollar account, you can go there for that also. Last thing, as I always talk about, is Start9 systems. I have one. I love it. I use it a lot. I know some of you that have been watching this has picked some up. I've gotten some messages on that. And if you go over there to take back your computer sovereignty, to not be tracked as much online with what you're doing, maybe you want to run your own version of PayPal through using BTC Pay, or you want to have end-to-end encryption messaging for you, your friends, your family. Maybe you have an association and you want to start taking in, payments, but not use Square, Cash App, stuff like that. Then you can use the Start9 server for that also. So head over to Start9, use the code Rebel Alliance at checkout, and that will get you 9% off. Now, I don't know if they're still doing their discount with Fold, but if you get a Fold card, which allows you to stack sats, I believe there's a link in the description, you can actually get a gift card through Fold. That'll give you another percentage off, and then you can use the 9% at checkout. Not sure if that's still working, but you can give it a shot. So little quick story time. So I worked last night, got home this morning, thought I had a telehealth appointment at 9:30. So I slept for like an hour and didn't have it. So I went back to sleep till about 10:30 because I had a dentist appointment at 11 because I'm pretty sure I know now that I cracked a tooth. So I either have to put a cap on it and have, a root canal done or pull it, one of the two. So I've had it for a while. It hasn't really been bothering me except when I eat like certain things. So that being said, I get there 10 minutes early because I know I got to fill out paperwork, and it's about 15 to 20 minute drive from where I live. So I go over to the next town, get there, start filling out my paperwork. All of a sudden the TV goes out in the lobby. And all of a sudden there's a lot of shuffling of papers, in the background and a little bit of commotion. The internet went out. Boy, did it knock everybody back to the Stone Ages. And it just made me think about how we talk about preparedness on here. Now, here they are at a business, a dentist office, and the power goes out, or not the power, but the internet goes out. They check the other floors. Some floors have it, some floors don't. It seems to be a Comcast issue. No dig at Comcast. Stuff happens. And then 11 o'clock comes. They're like, oh, you don't know what's going on. I finally didn't get seen to, I think it was like almost 12:30. And at this point, I was already committed. I was like, I'm not going anywhere as long as you guys can get me in. I want to get this taken care of and looked at and set up the appointment to do whatever else. So then finally the internet comes back on. But in the meantime, their backup systems weren't working. Obviously, they hadn't checked them in a while. So it just goes to show you that we don't need to prepare for end times, even though you probably should spiritually, or zombie apocalypse or anything like that. But again, simple things like the grid going down, or just they lost the internet for like an hour and a half, and how crippling it was because they were in the process of canceling all their appointments. And let me turn on the comments before I forget, just in case anybody wants to chime in where they're watching from and stuff like that. So that made me think about a few things. And then we got, let me just pull them up here. We got some Q&A in some of the groups. So I want to get that up here so we can go over those. I said I would answer it in the video today. So let me pull those up and get that over to the other screen where I need it. But first, the title today, we're being sold out. I've had a few conversations after my last video with some people about, making change at local level, maybe running for office, making your voice heard, which I still think is really important. But I think what the problem is that we as the American people have really at all levels of government, I'm not talking just the federal level, even though it's the biggest cesspool there is as far as their tyrannical overreach and everything that's happened in the last couple of years, that we have just let the government go without any consequences, no peaceful protests, no calling, no writing, no doing anything, no boycotting stuff, nothing at all. We just kind of like, yeah, I can still get my Amazon package. I'm still getting my paycheck. I can still drive to work. I've got my Netflix. We really don't care. And what brings this up is I was looking at some news stuff and going through some things. And I don't know how I missed this, but this is from the 22nd and today's the 25th. So 3 days ago. And let me share my screen here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Let's see here. This should come up. So we've got the U.S. Supreme Court sides with Biden administration in Texas border razor wire case. Now, basically what the good old Supreme Court came out and said is, you know what, Texas, you can't defend yourself. You can't protect your borders. We're going to side with Biden and you're going to take down all this razor wire. And I remember kind of hearing a little bit about the story, but I didn't really look into it. And it might have been even before this where the White House press secretary, she was actually up there saying that, well, the razor wire does not keep illegal immigrants out, and it's dangerous to the Border Patrol agents because they could cut themselves on it. Now, I've worked in the prison system here in Connecticut. I'm just about to retire. I worked in air base ground defense and security forces for the Air Force in over 20 years, going on multiple deployments in different locations and setting up concertina wire and razor wire and doing all these things that keep people out. And it's just amazing that now nobody says, hey, Supreme Court, what's going on here? Nobody's voicing their opinions. Nobody's doing anything. None of these elected clowns that we pick are doing anything. Again, it's like it's like the old school. If you used to watch like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, that's what it's like. So, we look at that, then you start looking at everything just going on. There was the summer of love. There was all these protests. There was, crap getting burnt down, nothing happening to them because it's being funded by one side over the other. But then if you take a look at the FBI, and I guess you tie this all the way back to like the 10 Commandments. Like we have all this law, right? We have tort law, we have constitutional law, we have common law, we have statutory law, we have codes and policies. We can't even get the commandments right? We can't even get that simple stuff right? If we just did that and we actually enforced the laws that were on the books, things would probably be a little bit better. And this is, and trust me, I'm going to tie this into associations like I always do, because this is where I think getting together with a group of people and really starting to prepare and protect yourself, because our government is running such a muck that it's not going to happen, I don't think, anytime soon. Even if Mr. Trump gets into office, the former president, or it's, again, I'm not putting all my eggs in that one basket, because if he had done what he did the first go around, we wouldn't be into I'll read that in a second. How are you? Good to see you. If he had done what he had said in the first go around, lock her up and all this other stuff. And I might have talked about this before. It's just frustrating because everybody's like, oh, Trump took Iowa, Trump took New Hampshire, this and that. And I'm like, nothing's going to change, folks. Nothing is going to change. It's all a great big parlor trick because we just let it happen. We don't boycott stuff. We don't say, listen, we don't want electric cars, or, hey, we're just not going to pay for gas for a month because, we don't want to, pay these prices, or we're not going to shop here. We're not going to do that. We don't do anything. If you look back at what the protests were like during the Revolutionary period or during that time period, the 1700s, they had people that look like the politicians hanging from nooses, and they were peacefully protesting, but they were sending a message. We don't send a message. We have rallies. We don't even have protests anymore. And it's just, anyways. So my thing is, there's no consequences for the crime. And being in the law enforcement system for almost 20 years, I see this on a daily basis. The FBI, I think it was 2021, their stats were 1.31 million violent crimes throughout the US. And how many of those are like a revolving door? They're coming in, they're going out. I've seen it my whole career. They come in for 6-7 months, they go out. They get a bond, they go out. They murder somebody else, something else happens, and nobody's being held accountable. They come to prison, they get a tablet, they get internet, they get 3 meals a day, they go to college for free, they get jobs, they do stuff like that. Now, granted, there are some that are in there for DUIs and doing really stupid stuff, but I'm talking about your actual criminals. And, even look at how many illegal immigrants have come across the border and have killed US citizens, and nothing has happened to them, either drunk driving or gun charges or something else. And I don't care if it's a gun, a car, a knife. It's not the inanimate object. It's the person. And there's no consequences for anybody's actions. So anyways, my whole point with this is, when we're talking about, this government and this election cycle, we're trusting that it's going to change. And this is the same government when we were told there were MWDs overseas and we invaded a country and there was nothing there. I was in Kuwait, I was in Afghanistan, I was in Diego Garcia and Korea and all these other places and deployments. And, granted, I was a different mindset back then. I was a little brainwashed, but now waking up and seeing how things really are, it's, the same government. And all of a sudden, here we are. Oh, it's cool. We said there was this, but there was nothing there. And who got rich off it? Look it up. Don't trust what I'm saying. And the reason why I bring this up is because of that time period. Let me see, where can I find it? Here it is. And I'll bring this up in a second. If you go over to American Military News, you see that, we had the TSA, we were getting pat downs. We were, our Fourth Amendment right was basically being violated. And that's the right of the people to be secure on their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause supported by the oath of affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. Now, if you go to the airport, you need to go through TSA. They're going to go up one side of you and down the other with no reason, searching kids and stuff like that. Now I get it. Like, I've seen people hide drugs in kids' diapers and bring them into jails and stuff like that. And yes, there are people that do that, but the majority don't. And there needs to be a better way than frisking everybody that comes through and patting them down, grabbing their groin and everything else, when they're like, I'm going on a business trip. I come through here every Monday to fly to DC or wherever they're going, right? So your Fourth Amendment's being violated. And now the good old clown in the People's White House says illegal immigrants can fly without ID under a Biden administration reports. And you can go to the American Military News and look this up and read it for yourself. But I mean, seriously, this is how much the people are allowing to have happen, instead of standing up. And I don't care if you call your congressman 4 or 5 times a day, send emails and everything else, to the point where they don't even want to hear their phone ring anymore. Things need to start changing. We need to be peacefully protesting this stuff. And to say, okay, not only are they getting put into schools in New York and kids have to stay home and do education. I was going to say telehealth there because that's what I thought I had today. But not only they that, we have southern borders that aren't shipping them back. They're shipping them to other states. Like, that's going to make any difference. And now they're telling us, hey, I, as an American citizen, as a veteran of 20 years who is retired, has to show an ID to get on a plane. But this clown that walks across the border, who could very well be a terrorist, can just get on the plane and fly for free, or not for free, but can get on the plane and fly. And if you look and do a quick search, I just said, how many suspected terrorists apprehended at the U.S. border in 2023? There were 736, and that's what was caught. And I'll even show this here because I try to back everything up with what I'm, reading, what I'm showing, and so you guys can see. And this is, MSN, right? MSN. So I'm not picking stuff that's just one-sided. I'm using all the different news outlets out there because I want you to see that it's not just some crazy guy that hasn't slept in almost 24 hours on the internet now doing a podcast because he missed the last couple of days because things here have been crazy. And I'll talk about that at the end between the stuff that's been going on. And I swear, if it could have happened today, it did. But I was determined to have this because as I started looking at some of this stuff and reading it, it's just ridiculous. And so, TSA was put into place, right? Now they violate our 14th Amendment. The Patriot Act was put into place in basically to spy on and to fight terrorism. But what does it do? It records everything that we say. It's recording this podcast right now. Probably everybody that's on it. It's recording every phone call I have, every text message I say or I send. And if you look at what a terrorism is now, it's all about homegrown terrorism and the MAGA movement, and anybody that has any conservative Christian values is now a terrorist. I don't care what color your skin is. And if you have those beliefs where you're not progressive enough, you're considered, number one on the terrorist watch list. And this video is definitely getting me dinged today. I know that's going to happen, but it is what it is. That's why we have Rumble. So, if you look back and you do a little research and you see, the word or the definition of terrorist has evolved over the decades and centuries. And if you go back, you can actually see that terrorist was defined as government intimidation. And if you look at international, I think it's international terrorism or international terrorists, it still talks about government intimidation, but it's more from like one country to another, as opposed to your own government intimidating the people. And that's what a lot was going on early on in our country. So, we have all these laws and things in place, and we have constitutional law. We have the Constitution, which has the Supremacy Clause, Article 6 of the Constitution. This Constitution, the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuant therefore, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, and the thing in the Constitution or laws or of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. And this also is backed up by Mayberry versus Madison from 1803, where it says, a law repugnant to the Constitution is void, and the courts, as well as other departments, are bound by that instrument. So they're bound by the Constitution. And I don't know of anybody that's come up in Congress or anywhere on TV, C-SPAN, I don't care where it is, and has said, hey, let's keep the borders open. You've got one group of these clowns, and they're not saying, hey, listen, this, God, it wouldn't be that hard to find treason with what's going on, but nobody wants to do that. They just want to tiptoe and tap dance around the fact because, if you read Article 3, Section 3, treason against the United States shall be consistent only in leavening war against them or adhering to their enemies, giving them aiding and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overact or on confession in open court. Congress shall have the power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainer of treason shall work corruption of blood, forfeiture, etc. during the life of the person attended. So basically, treason's death, like they say, right? And there's these and this isn't just for the federal government. If you look at your state constitution, it says things that are very similar. So why are we not holding people's feet to the fire? Why are we letting, 736 unknown terrorists come by, through the good old border? Why are we saying that, illegal immigrants can now fly with no ID, but every other American, it's our country. Last time I checked, they fled their country. If you go to Mexico, if you go break into, go skip the border in North Korea or in China and see what happens to you, right? I mean, it's no joke. Here, it's like, hey, high five, here's a debit card, go to this hotel, and hey, by the way, you can fly for free. Now you don't have to take the Peter Pan bus from Texas anymore. It's absolutely insane. And I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to this, but enough people, it's a very small majority that's controlling all this, and there's more of us than them. And as soon as we realize that and we start actually protesting peacefully and not just having rallies and actually filing lawsuits and actually holding people accountable and filing criminal complaints and keep, in their personal and their public capacity, then I think things will start to change. And then that's also calling your congressman. And this is where I say it all trickles down to the lowest level. We're not going to make that major change, I don't think, at the national level, but we can do it at the local level, and we can start working up the ladder and putting that pressure on our elected officials. But anyways, as I continue, and I'm going to bring this all back to associations, I promise, and then I'll get back to your comments there, Debbie. Normally, I'm drinking out of a really nice mason jar, but today, along with everything else that could possibly go wrong, I turn, and if you can see my desk here, it is an absolute mess. I really got to finish putting this office together, and I knocked my mason jar over, and it was like in slow motion. I tried to grab the darn thing, and it just went, and I have a tile floor in here, so that went everywhere. So hence the water that I'm drinking now as opposed to coffee, because I have to go to sleep in a little bit. And I'm probably talking really fast because I'm tired, and the tired I get, the faster I talk. So for those of you in other areas that may not be able to keep up with me, I am sorry. And I'm consciously now going to try to slow that down. So here's another article that I found very interesting. When did this come out? This was an old one. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up is I heard somebody else talking about it, and I was like, no way, this can't be true. And it just goes to show you how much of the mainstream news, whether it's Newsmax, OAN's okay, I haven't had them for a little while now. My subscription ran out. But this is why you have to do your own research. You have to look at all the different news outlets to see what's going on, because here we go. This is from this is November of 2023, so it is older. I never heard about it until the other day. And where is my mouse? There it is. So here you go. You got this right here, and this is Biden administration tracking all Americans who traveled to DC on January 6th, 2021 reports. And if you go down here, according to the director of the Air Marshal National Council, Sonia Labasco, hope I said that right. If I didn't, I apologize. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, has a special mission for air marshals to track individuals who travel to DC region on that day of the January 6th protest. And as you read through this, it's not even that they showed up at the protest. It's just that they flew into the area during that. And again, this is what we, the people, allow happen, because honestly, I didn't know about this, and this was brought to my attention, and I'm like, are you kidding me? So, again, the media, the government, whoever you want to say, the Bilderbergs, the George Soroses, the Bill Gates, whatever you want to call it, they're very good at, here's a shiny object, look at this over here, and not understanding what else is going on. And that's why I'm really trying to kind of bring it all in and keep it within the association realm as much as I can, because I just don't want to be another news podcast. I think that's lame. There's enough of those out there, but I really just kind of, when I learn something, want to bring it to everybody's attention, because I'm like, if I don't know about it, maybe there's others that don't. And, not everybody, has a 40-minute drive to work where they can listen to a podcast or some other alternate news network or something along those lines. So I found that very interesting. And again, we have all this stuff that we have these laws in place to stop all this, but it's like everybody turns a blind eye to it, and we just let it go. And you can easily go and look any of this stuff up that I'm posting. I don't know if I'll have time to put it into the chat today, or the what do you call it, the description, but I do want to turn this to some questions that we have for associations. And I guess I'll bring this in closing for this discussion here, is that, we need to remember that when we look at Mayberry versus Madison, it's still a standing court case, and a law repugnant to the Constitution is void. The court, as well as other departments, are bound by that instrument. And so we really need to, could you imagine if everybody at the local level started saying, this goes against the Constitution. You weren't given this power. All right, I'll pull that up in a second. I got some good comments today. Thank you all for the comments. I appreciate it. I'll be putting this up on screen real quick. And so Could you imagine if you had an association of people that got together and said, you know what, I am fed up with how things are. I'm fed up of being lied to. I'm fed up of them busing illegal immigrants into our country. Like, I have no problem if you come in the right way. And I have no problem if you are actually a woman, or a woman with a young child coming from a country with documentation that's war torn or something along those lines. But when you have all these um, uh, military aged males coming in the country to set up cells, more than likely, terrorists being caught on the border, people that aren't leaving for any good reason other than they don't like what's going on here. And what kills me is you have people come here and they're like, oh, this is terrible. Well, if you didn't like what we're doing here, why'd you leave your country? Feel free to go back. And it's just those things where we just, if we were fed up to the point where you're just like, I can't take it anymore. I need to set up a group. And again, peacefully get together, say, okay, this is the topic this week. We're going to go to this board and talk to. We're going to go here. We're going to write letters. We're going to call into, news radio. We're going to get the word out there and really start pushing this and holding these people accountable and say, hey, listen, you have a state constitution. Like in Connecticut, we have a state constitution. You have probably charters and bylaws for your towns. And it says, something similar to this. Why is this being allowed to happen? Put them on the spot, make them accountable for it, because all those meetings are recorded and become public record. And you can start sharing that and bringing awareness to maybe the person that's new to town that doesn't want to go to the border, thinks everything's good and money's getting spent left and right. And I think I talked about this in the other video a day ago, but like our town here has a little surplus, if I understand it correctly, and they want to update the signage because it needs to be, the signage looks too dated. They need more of a I forgot the word they used, but to make it more pleasing to the eye and make them all uniform anyways. But just imagine if you had an association that got together for this. And I think associations for any other reason are great too, but we need to have that common goal or that reason for association to come together, because with the First Amendment, we're allowed to peacefully assemble. We're allowed to redress the government for grievances. We're allowed to have the First Amendment for protesting and speaking our mind and everything like that. And it should be done peacefully. And we should be showing the government that, listen, we're on to what's going on here. We're picking up what you're putting down on the sidelines where you don't want anybody to see it. And we're tired of it. So that's why I think associations are important. And there's other reasons too. And I guess before I get into the conversations of the questions, some of the reasons why there was no podcast the last 2 days is, I think it was 2 days. Like, I'm so tired. I don't remember, but there wasn't one yesterday because we ended up having a snow day and the kids got out the house late. So then I didn't get to sleep till later. And it was just a lot going on. And then today with the doctor's appointment taking an hour and a half longer because I was there at 11, didn't get seen to 1:30 because, again, like I said, for those of you who didn't see this, the internet went out and it kicked them right back to the Stone Ages. So even just being prepared for something like that, they had some redundant systems, but they never checked them, so they weren't working. So that's why I try to bring in some of the preparedness to this, because it's something as simple as that. Like, you lose power in your house for a week. Are you going to be able to survive? So anyways, I'm jumping over to the Facebook group now, and we are, let's see here. See if I can pull this up. Got a couple. All right. So I had a post and it said, new week, new start. What's on your mind today? And Ling said, let's see, I can expand this whole post. Playing devil advocate here. Say hypothetically, there is already a network of some people, friends that gather together and help each other out. What advantages then would there be in forming an official PMA or unincorporated association, or just association, whatever you like to call it, among these folks? Can you answer with some hypothetical situations as examples? Thanks in advance. And this is a great question. Actually, can I bring this up on screen? I think I can. Let me see here. Yeah, so there it is there if you're in the Facebook group. But like I've said before, you do not need to have an association if you have something hypothetically like this. You don't need to have an association. You have something bigger, because we already have those rights. We have that right of assembly. We have that right of association. The reason why I think it's important to have documentation showing that you have an association, a ministry, a church, whatever it is that you're putting together, is because if you are challenged, like here in the state, I now have 3 that are being challenged, and it's by like fire marshals and stuff, nothing that we can't handle. Um, it's important to to show that you are operating properly. And what I mean by that is it's not just a bunch of guys getting together on the weekend because they want to learn how to shoot better and maybe hunt. Like, you don't necessarily need an association for that. You could do that, or maybe a bunch of people getting together to garden. But if you're doing something where you might be in an area where, let's say, lockdowns happen again, or I've been talking to some people in Australia, and we're going to be doing, I think, a monthly meeting with some people out there that are doing associations. So it's kind of cool to see how they're using international law for that stuff. But let's just say you're being challenged on something, whether it's, you're building a garden, maybe your HOA doesn't like the fact that you have a garden there, or, it's there's a multitude of reasons why you might want to have your documents. So, and especially if you're doing anything with education of children, or you're doing any type of church because you're looking to be tax exempt for what your church mission is and doing. And again, like, a ministry doesn't fall under that 508c1a tax code. It's specifically for churches. And if you've read the PMA manifesto, you'll see that, or jumped on any of the free calls or listen to any of the videos here. But the reason for that is, let's say you have this group together, and let's say Johnny said, well, I wanted 2 bushels of apples. That's what I was told I was going to get. And you didn't have anything in writing. And then you said, no, you're only getting 1 bushel because maybe you didn't have the yield that you thought you were going to have. And now maybe he wants to bring a suit against you because you're in breach of the verbal contract. Now, if it's in writing, it's better. If you have a membership agreement and you are laying out in your bylaws and articles of organization what that association is going to be for, any type of alternative dispute resolution. So if a dispute does come up, how is going to be resolved, and whether it's binding or non-binding arbitration or whatever it is. And then having that membership agreement saying, listen, this is what you're going to be entitled to. Things might change. You may not be getting everything that we say, or whatever your reason for association is. So that's why I think it's important to have founding documents, whether you write them yourself, you get the DIY templates, you write them on a bar napkin, yeah, have me write them for you by consulting with me, and I can consult with you, and or the ladies over at the PMA manifesto. Any one of those ways, I just, when I talk with people or when I do videos like this, I'm reaching a fairly halfway decent, I'm not that wide, but a good group of individuals. And if I tell you, oh, well, you don't need to do this, and you get jammed up, you're gonna be like, well, you told me I can do this. So I'm trying to explain it the easiest way, the whole kiss, keep it simple, stupid, and being able to kind of give a general view on it. That's why I say, even if you do the DIY templates, write them yourself, it's important to maybe schedule a time to consult with me so we can get into more of the uh, intricacies of what you're looking to do. And that's only because I don't want to set people up for failure. I want people to have multiple layers of defense. And because there's a lot of these carpetbaggers, as Erica would put them, if you've ever been on any of our calls, where these snake oil and charlatans sell you stuff. Like, I talked to a lady here in state, like I said before, she paid $4,500 for garbage, and the lady that set him up won't even return her calls now, and she's having issues. And that's where I want to try to make it where people understand their right of association, understand their religious freedoms, understand their right to assemble, understand what the Constitution says. I guarantee most of us haven't read it from front to back, and understand what these court cases say and set precedents for us. Because if I'm assuming most of you are like me, where you want to, be in a world with a leaner, less intrusive government, where you're allowed to make decisions for yourself as an adult and not be looked at as like a child of the state, and the state tell you what to do, and be treated like a child because you're a grown person, man or woman. And that's why I think it's important to have, founding documents. Do you need them? Absolutely not. You can run it by the seat of your pants. But if something happens, you want to have something at least in writing to show that either to some agency that you're operating properly, or if there's a dispute, it's handled properly. Let me see. I said, I'm really trying not to say that as much anymore on here. Yeah, let's see here. Oh yeah. The thing with the PMA manifesto, and Ling had said that, it doesn't clarify a lot of things. It's a lot of tax based stuff, because when we wrote that, that were some of the biggest myths that had to deal around the taxes and associations and people paying taxes or being tax exempt. So I get it. It may not answer every question for you. We have been talks about a second version of it, but we'll see. That took us a little while on its own. Let me see here. Next one. All right. Oh, so you're located in Connecticut. Oh no, you're not. Okay, it's somebody else. All right. So if my eye works here for me, we have a PMA. When was this? This is January 17th. I think I might have answered this one already. Maybe not, but we'll go through it anyways. The PMA, we have a PMA at a local farm in Connecticut and have questions about our paperwork. We had an advisor out in California who seems wonderful. However, I was advised by another PMA in Connecticut to call a Corey Scott in Colorado, no idea who that is, to have our paperwork changed over to a 508 status. A 508 is not a status, it's not a thing. Is it necessary? Sounds good, except there was a huge push for money, which made me a little uncomfortable. Okay, so again, I'm going to reiterate this as best I can. A 508 C1A, or if you hear anybody say a 508 status, 508 C1A status, it is not a status. It is a code in the IRS book of codes. If you go over to the IRS and type in 501(c), it'll be a subsection of that, and it's specifically made for churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, so on and so forth. It's made for single denominations, not non-denominations, and it's so a church doesn't have to apply the 1023 for the 501c3. They can fall under the 508c1a as long as they are operating as a bona fide church. And they use the term church to kind of cover all those different types of churches and buildings. And they have 14 points that the IRS will look at. Now, the IRS doesn't say how many of those you actually have to complete or have to check off in order to be considered a bona fide church, but those are the points that we look at to make sure somebody is operating properly. I don't know who in California did your documents. Farmer Kelly in the group, if you want, feel free to shoot me a DM or use my contact information to get a hold of me, and we can talk further. We might have already talked. If we have, I apologize. I talk to a lot of people daily, and sometimes I write notes and sometimes I don't. I need to do a better job at that. And then this Ling person said, I just read changing a 508 is not good and necessary. It's really not unless you're operating and absolutely operating a church and you're operating it properly. All right, let's see what else we have here for some replies. My understanding, as long as you file, okay, so this is a Jen put this up here. She says, please clarify. My understanding, as long as you file an SS4 from the IRS and you have an EIN number, your articles of incorporation is what makes you a 508c1a. Is that correct? Now, you can incorporate as a entity, whatever entity you want, and you can file as a church. When you fill out the SS4 form, there's an option for church, for others, for social clubs, all different reasons to be tax exempt. There's boxes you can check, there's blanks you can fill in. Just because you do that doesn't mean you are going to be tax exempt. So let's say you were running a ministry, which is not technically tax exempt based on the IRS 508c1a tax code, because it is not a church. Now, you can have a church and there could be an auxiliary of that church that is a ministry that is doing ministerial work in the town or wherever. That's completely fine. And those would be both tax exempt. However, let's say I come in and I give you a check for $10,000, and then you give me a receipt for a donation. And then I go and claim, hey, I gave A, B, C, D, F, G a donation. Here's my receipt. They're not going to know who you are. And that's what's going to send up the red flag. And they're going to see your EIN number. And they'll be like, oh, okay, you're a church. Show me how you're a church. Show me that you're operating properly. And this is where we've seen people who have done this fail because they use all the money for personal inurement. They don't have, some states require, if you have a church, to have certain people on your board in non-paid positions. Some people cannot be related. So I try to tell people, when you look at it, if you look at like a traditional church, like your Southern Baptist or what have you, you have your board that runs the church, and then you have your pastor. Your pastor is kind of the head of the church. He's in a paid position. And I might be wrong. So if somebody wants to correct me on this, feel free to do that. But if you are the pastor, you're not necessarily sitting on the board in a paid position. So hopefully that clarifies those questions there. And thank you for these. These are great questions. Let's see here. I think that is it for questions. We are at 40 minutes. So for those of you who are watching the replay of this or still on, feel free to go over to eastcoastpma.com, the Telegram group. All the links are in the description. I love having you on here. Love having you ask questions. And then, like I said before, Debbie, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it. Oh, okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And then other states are joining in. That's good to know. Also, are you the one I set up for a? No, maybe not. I don't know if you're the one I don't know if I set up an association for you or not. I might have. Yes, I did. I did. Hopefully everything's going good. I haven't talked to you in a while. It just takes me a minute for my brain to work. And then in the 90s, there was an operation called PatCon where they were targeting political conservatives. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, it's awesome, Debbie. I'm glad you were on. Haven't talked to you in a while, so great to see you on here. Much appreciated. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff we don't know about, folks, and we really need to start really looking at other places to bring in this information. So hopefully this one doesn't get banned on YouTube, but if it does, at least it'll be up on Rumble and on the podcast episodes over at East Coast PMA. So thank you for watching. I appreciate you spending your time with me. I'm going to sleep because I'm tired, and I will talk to you all soon. See ya.
Uprisings all over the country, maybe there will be.
People